McManus.
Thank you. First of all, may I thank my colleagues in the Labour Party and all the other members who contributed to this debate. And I sense across the House concern being expressed about people at risk of fuel poverty. Winter is setting in. There are some people who are alive today who will die this winter because the conditions they live in are too cold or too damp. Winter mortality levels in Ireland are particularly high, and we can actually do something to save those lives if we are in dealing with the issue in a coherent way, which regrettably the government is not. When you look at the figures, 2,000 to 2,500 electricity disconnections per month this year, 4,000 disconnections by an Bord Gáis. I mean, the most extraordinary thing about that statistic is for every one of those disconnections, VAT is paid. The actual coffers of the state benefit as a result of what's happening. Now, Minister White is here tonight speaking on behalf of her party. And the Green Party has been subject to some criticism here that the ministers are out of touch. I actually think that's a little unfair. The government is out of touch. It's not just the Greens, regrettably. And it does happen when government ministers are in warm offices and are driven around, and the Greens are very good at being driven around in heated cars. You get desensitised. You don't have the directed experience that people who are literally unable to stay warm are experiencing at the moment. Now, one thing I would recommend, though, let's not be emotional about this. Look to your programme for government and consider how you have failed to live up even to your own promise. You made a direct commitment. Every government minister, made a direct commitment that there would be a fuel poverty strategy published in 2009. There is nothing more telling about the disdain that this government has about people living in poverty, fuel poverty or anything else, or any other form of poverty, than the fact that you simply did not deliver even on that measure of a fuel poverty strategy. That's very telling. And when I hear Green ministers coming in here lecturing us about renewables, about changing our ways, about climate change, may I just make one suggestion to you? Today, we, the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Climate Change, have published a draft bill on climate change law. Prove yourselves. Prove yourselves when it comes to climate change. Take that bill, bring it into this House, we'll debate it, has all-party agreement, and let's do what needs to be done in terms of the big challenge, which you talk about, you preach about, but you don't deliver on. I'm tired waiting. I'm tired waiting. How long do we have to wait? That's the whole point, Minister.
You know, allow members to speak without interruption.
If the amount of hot air could be channeled into the poor households that comes from this government, we'd be doing very nicely. But we are not. I think the issue of the fuel allowance has to be dealt with, and dealt with quickly. I mean, listening to the Minister for Social Protection coming in here with this kind of wonderful rambles through Éireann. You know, 4% here and 5% there, and some people aren't comfortable in their homes, and lone parents tend to be more poor than everybody else. We know this. What we want to know is, why is it that the promise given at the budget has not been delivered upon? Why is it that the Minister for Environment is coming out talking up the increase in fuel allowances, the Taoiseach is trying to slap it down, and Minister O'Keefe isn't telling us anything at all, and he's the minister responsible. Now, that's not coherent government. Now, let's just be practical. Commitments made at the budget, certainly taxes that are applied at the budget are always delivered upon. This is a commitment. Let's actually see it happen. And a question was asked by Deputy Jan O'Sullivan: who regulates the regulator? Well, very simple to answer that question. The minister regulates the regulator. And I'm very uncomfortable with this abandonment of responsibility when I hear the Taoiseach or I hear Minister Ryan talk about the regulator as if somehow he's, above the clouds, he's God the Father, and the diktat comes down, and we all have to understand that this is the way the world is, and we can't challenge it. That's not the way it is at all. Under the Electricity Regulation Act 1999, the minister has the power to direct the regulator, essentially on any matter which the minister considers appropriate. Well, I would hope, and indeed it's interesting, if you go on into the legislation, it's clear that the regulator has to report on how he's implemented the directive from the minister. If one thing can come out of this debate, if it can be that the minister tells the regulator to stop acting the way he is as a little god in terms of directing the big utility companies to misspend their customers' money by having a rebranding exercise that nobody needs, nobody wants, and is going to cost a lot of money, whether it's 40 million or 80 million. That is the kind of money that could be ploughed back, and utility companies are in a position to direct at least part of that money back to benefit people who are living in fuel poverty and living in terror that they will no longer be able to turn on the cooker to cook the dinner, to feed their children, or to turn on the electric fire to keep themselves warm. That's a reality that we all thought was finished with, was part of our past. It's now we're back to the future. And let's get real, Minister, and let's ensure that this debate produces results. Thank you.